Hello, Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode of the Weekly Crusaders. My name is Sean Waskrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And today we are talking about two movies that came out during the week of May 14th to May 20th. This is probably going to be more of a shorter episode this week than most. Like I said last week when we did Knight's Tale and Twister, when you have two movies that you genuinely love and enjoy, you just want to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and stuff like that. And you're excited to talk about it. This week, we don't hate either of the movies. It's just that one pick, I think it's what's the right word? Like back in the day, we really enjoyed it, but then watching it today, it's not even that.
I enjoyed it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fine, but there's just not a whole lot.
And it happens. Sometimes you look back at a movie and sometimes you don't hate it as much as you used to. Sometimes you don't love it as much as you used to.
Yeah, so
it happens. And plus, I mean, this is honestly the kind of time of year too. This May area, which in recent years it's kind of changed, but where pre-Memorial Day used to be kind of another like dip in like the quality and number of movies coming out, because like Memorial Day was when summer started.
Well, that and for the most part, we stated this to us off screen, and we've said it in the beginning of this of the season's shows, is that we're trying not to pick the blockbusters. We're trying to pick movies that maybe were big then, but maybe have not been talked about in a long time or are not looked at. So when you guys are going, what? Well, yes, we know Deadpool 2, Revenge of the Sith, Godzilla, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, Shrek, Road Trip. They all came out during this week, but we didn't want to pick those because, like Brian has said many times before, it's like, what new is there to be said about
those get talked about constantly. I like to either introduce people to films they maybe haven't heard of or haven't given a fair shot to. Yeah.
So we get it. It's May, it's summer. There are big blockbuster films that did come out during this week, but in terms of picking movies that we liked that maybe weren't as big, that's what we're trying to do. Or we're trying to pick something older that's like,
or like this week's they're both fairly popular movies, but they don't get talked about as much. So.
Well, yeah, and one's for a certain reason, another one is because just the genre of that has exponentially jumped in quality since then. So in terms of that, like, this might be a quicker episode. We'll see. Whenever we think an episode is going to be quick, it actually ends up becoming one longer one. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to start with my pick first, which is the one that we are worried about not having enough to talk about. And that is the 2006 animated film Over the Hedge. Over the Hedge came out May 19th, 2006, had a budget of $80 million, had a weekend opening of $38.46 million. It was number 2 its opening weekend, its highest rating or its highest rank in the box office, and had a finished box office of $339.80 million, $155.02 million domestic, and $184.78 million international. Now, in terms of money, this was a hit back in 2006, but when was the last time anyone talked about this movie? Probably not within that last 2 years since the movie came out. I remember being very, very fond of this film. I thought it was great. Bruce Willis. Has he ever done animated? Was this his first?
The only thing I know of they did for animation was we did a TV show called Hey Bruno or something Bruno. We played a little kid. It was a character he made up, honestly. And then he had a small voice role in Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Gotcha. But yeah, so I mean, like, Bruce Willis as an animated raccoon sounds great. Steve Carell, high off The Office and 40-Year-Old Virgin at that time. As a raccoon, you got Wanda Sykes, who now is annoying, but at that time she was really like peak Wanda. You got William Shatner, you got Avril Lavigne, you got Nick Nolte, you got Eugene Levy, and I'm blanking on her name.
I know which character you're talking about. Catherine O'Hara?
Thank you, Catherine O'Hara.
Okay.
I was going to say Catherine Watterson. I was like, that's not right. Who obviously Schitt's Creek fans. I mean, I'm a huge Schitt's Creek fan, but if there's Eugene Levy, Catherine's always like right there for the most part. So cast-wise, great cast. And even though I kind of shit on him like a couple weeks back on Cinemasochism, blanking on his name too. From the specials, couldn't stand Thomas Hayden Church.
Okay.
He's in it as well. your main premise is it's a bunch of wooden creatures that are basically trying to scavenge for the winter. You have wow, my head is just all over the place right now. Yeah, Over the Hedge. Bruce Willis is a raccoon. I'm blanking on what his character name is.
Oh, I didn't even bring that information up.
Yeah, I was like, and then I realized like I didn't have anything pulled up. But basically, he tries to steal a bunch of food from a hibernating bear, played by Nick Nolte, and in doing so, destroys all the food. And he has a week to basically gather up all the food that he destroyed, or the bear's going to eat him. And so he finds these woodland creatures who are now, they were hibernating during the winter, and when they woke up, a subdivision was built around them. And so they're worried about their food as well. But obviously, you know, Bruce Willis's raccoon's kind of like a con man. What's that?
RJ.
RJ, thank you. I thought my brain was on Reggie, and it's like, that is 1,000% not correct. I knew it was an R name. RJ is like, hey, you know, humans have tons of food. Let me show you how it is. And it's all about them gathering the food, and obviously family connection and stuff starts to intertwine from there. It's a fun, it's DreamWorks, right? It is DreamWorks.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a fun family film. I mean, at this point, DreamWorks was really just kind of riding off the Shrek train at this time. So they weren't really branching out and doing their own things. How to Train Your Dragon was still a few years off. So it's one of those that it wasn't Disney Pixar, and it was DreamWorks trying to do something that was not Shrek, and got the voice cast there. And it actually is, it's a fine film. Now, rewatching it now, it's very basic to a point, but even that, the basicness still works. The voice cast is great. There's some funny jokes, not like gut-busting laugh out loud, except for maybe Steve Carell. But it's still a fine film. It's not as good as I remembered it, but it's still an enjoyable family film. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think now actually pretty much what I thought then, which is I think this is a really underrated film as far as the DreamWorks animation ones, because people just like forget about this one and overlook it. And for me, I mean, with DreamWorks, with me, there's like the Kung Fu Pandas and the How to Train Your Dragons, and there's kind of like
Shrek.
See, not for me. For me, I think Shrek is below this. I am not impressed by the Shrek movies.
Oh, any of them?
They're fine. I don't find any of them to be all that. I mean, it's Mike Myers just doing things he's done in 10 other movies, just in animation form, and then it's like the other stuff around it. Some of it's funny, some of it's not. But it's I don't dislike them.
I'll make sure to never pick a Shrek movie for the show.
Yeah, I don't dislike them. I think they're amusing. I just don't think they're like great like everybody else does. But
so your mindset on Shrek, I know we're kind of subverting over to Shrek real quick. So your thought process on Shrek is how I feel about Despicable Me and the Minions. Except I hate them. But like everyone thinks that they're great, and I think that they're just overrated as shit.
See, I think Despicable Me's are amusing. I don't love them either. I'd honestly put Despicable Me and Shrek on the same level, honestly.
Oh.
The Minions films.
I know now. I know where your mindset is. So the way you feel about Shrek is the way I feel about Despicable Me and Minions. So okay, cool.
I will say I know we're on a tangent, but I will say the Minions films are very different. Those are definitely way farther down because those are definitely geared towards the younger kids. But anyway,
losing brain cells as you watch those films. But anyway, back to Over the Hedge.
Yeah. So, but I think it's underrated. I think that people have kind of overlook it and forget about it. But I think it's actually one of the better DreamWorks films. Besides, like I said, the two franchises that I think are really their best ones. I'll take this over the Shreks. I'll take it over the Madagascars, any of the Trolls films, any of that kind of stuff.
I agree with that as well. I think the Madagascars were never great, and Trolls is fine for what it is, but still also just really, really kiddie.
I mean, the animation, I think, still holds up for the most part. I mean, it's definitely early in kind of the CG animated thing, especially with humans, because like they were very like kind of smooth.
That's what I was saying. I think the animals look great. It's the humans that look very
well. Even Pixar didn't really start trying to feature humans until 2 years earlier with Incredibles in 2004.
Yeah.
Because if you look back at the humans and like the Toy Stories and movies like that, they don't look great. It's like you couldn't quite get people in skin right. So even in here, it's like they look kind of plasticky and they're kind of very bland facial features.
And Toy Story, they all look like smooth.
And even like the early Shrek movies are kind of like that too.
Yeah.
So I mean, but other than that, I mean, as far as the animals and stuff, that the animation was done very well. I think it's funny. If there's one thing I could have done without it, they kind of seem to shove in a lot of these like songs for no reason, and they're like really kind of mellow songs that kind of is weird tone.
That's just animated films in general, especially with DreamWorks. I think DreamWorks Shrek personally started this trend where they were like, hey, we can use pop songs and popular songs and we can force them into it and people are going to like it, because Disney doesn't do that. Pixar also doesn't do that. But DreamWorks was like, we're going to do that. And so then it kind of became a norm. Like,
see, I'm not a fan of that. And if you notice in the ones that I seem to like the Kung Fu Pandas, the How to Train Your Dragons, don't do that. It
they
seems
like for the credits. The credits.
Yeah, if you have whatever you want over the credits. I mean,
Yeah.
you can make up most soundtracks in like 80s and 90s had songs that were just made for the credits. Fine, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's if you're gonna have a musical movie, I'm fine with that. I love actual musicals. If you're gonna use just like songs, pop songs essentially shoved in there, that kind of tends to take me out of these movies sometimes. Especially in, like I said, in this one, it's the tone of it, because there's a lot of like real like mellow songs. And it's like, okay, this is so weird.
Wasn't that the problem that you had with Mario? Oh no, you haven't seen Mario yet.
I have not seen Mario yet.
Is that I didn't mind it, but with Super Mario Brothers, you have the phenomenal Nintendo Super Mario scores through it, but then they would throw in like "Take on Me" or "We Need a Hero" or
now that I hear that, I'm like,
Beastie Boys, "Sabotage" or something like. Was that "Sabotage" or was No Sleep Till Brooklyn? They threw that stuff in, which I thought it fit for where they were at in the film. But a lot of people, it rubbed them the wrong way.
And I also think in animated films, which take place in like these fantasy worlds or like these artificial worlds, it takes away the timeless feeling of them. You shove in pop songs, and it's like.
Well, in Mario, I mean, they are in Brooklyn, and then they go into Mushroom Kingdom. So Mario and Luigi know those songs. But
I guess.
But
that's my only. That didn't make me dislike the movie. It's just one of. If I was going to complain about something or say one thing I should have left out, it would have been those songs. I mean, I enjoy the story, I enjoy the plot. Although I do have questions like how during their hibernation in a place which apparently they hibernate, so there's snow, a winter season. In like this 4 months, whatever they're hibernating, an entire subdivision was built.
I don't think
that's A, and B, they don't even do construction like that in the middle of winters.
They don't. And the only thing, because obviously there's
built and people moved in already.
Yeah, that's at least on that street that we see. We don't know about the whole subdivision. The only thing I can think of, and even then, unless it's fake.
And yes, I know we're overanalyzing an animated.
We are. It's, like I said, we're at this point we're just hypothetically talking. I don't think necessarily the construction stuff was not happening, but it was more or less maybe they were building around the woods, and when they were asleep, their section where they lived is what got worked on, which I find it hard to believe.
And fully mature hedges were planted.
And that's in those hedges. So unless those hedges are fake, hedges don't grow that fast. So unless they were already like built that high and then just like planted in, I don't know how those hedges would have grown that quickly. But the other thing too is that with all that construction and cutting down the trees and stuff, I find it very hard to believe those animals wouldn't have woken up.
Yeah.
During those 4 months.
And what about all the animals that were asleep in those sections where they mowed them down?
They probably they either died or got picked up or
that's the darker version of Over the Hedge.
Yes, exactly. Once again, all hypothetical shit we're talking about. We're poking holes in a children's film. I agree with that, because it's like, you guys didn't realize this happening around you, because even the thing too is like, I don't believe turtles hibernate. I don't think reptiles hibernate, so why would the turtle?
Well, you don't see them roaming around in the winter, so I think they do, honestly.
Well, it's because turtles are not necessarily in cold weather areas for the most part, unless they're pets. But
they're in Illinois. I know that in the middle of winter.
They're down here, but we're not cold. But I like snakes and them, like they maybe live more underground or in water and stuff, but they don't like sleep for 4 months on end. And like that's the other thing too, is like they were like going to the first part of the film. It's like, so they were able to sleep through all this construction and not be bothered. But RJ opens a Spuddy, and that woke up a bear. Like that wakes up the bear out of hibernation. Not anything else that he was doing, because he was making so much noise. But it's the that wakes up the bear. Honestly though, Nick Nolte cast as the bear, that was like perfect.
That was perfect casting.
That was perfect voice casting right there. And Bruce Willis voice casted as a raccoon. perfect voice casting for Bruce Willis.
I thought he worked. I mean, he did well with the voice cast. And I thought it fit him well. And like I said, I don't know why he hasn't done more of it, but
Well, we won't have it probably now. But
no, not now.
Sadly. But I mean, honestly, that is the one thing I think that's why we like this movie as much as we do in a way, is that I think everyone is casted perfectly for their animal roles. Wanda Sykes as a skunk makes total sense and good. Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara as God, they aren't the possums. Which ones are they? Oh yeah, they're the porcupines. That works well. William Shatner as an overacted porcupine, or possum, that is perfect casting. And I love that he is just William Shatnering his way through this whole movie. What will we do? Like, it's just like if you don't know William Shatner, you're not getting those jokes. But if you do know him, and him being the one that has to fake die all the time, that's perfect overacting for that kind of casting choice. You look confused. What's up?
And I'm sorry, I was looking up something else. Finish your statement.
Oh, okay. So I think all the voice cast and stuff work really well together. Gary Shandling is a turtle. I'm not a Gary Shandling fan at all, but if he was going to be, if you're going to put him as something, you would put him as something as boring as a turtle. No disrespect to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they're the furthest away from actual turtles in those movies. But it's more the human cast that doesn't work well, and watching the antics that they do, stealing the food, that stuff's fun. But you have the Gary Shandling of it all, which, I mean, that's his character, that's the role, but it's just his character and the human characters to me is what kind of stagnates the film in a way for me. And that's just because Gary Shandling's voice is just so, it's very much like a turtle. It's slow and just blah, and it slows me down. But then you have someone like Steve Carell, perfect casting as a squirrel. His jokes are great because it's Steve Carell. I even love just hearing him in the background when he says stuff. If you pay attention to him, you hear him and it's you're laughing, but you're not laughing at the forefront. You're laughing at the background stuff. But yeah, I love that they did oh God, I'm blanking on the character's name. X-Men prequels.
Quicksilver.
Peter's character. Yes, they did the Quicksilver scene before X-Men did. So technically X-Men copied this, which I thought was funny in a way. But yeah, it's a very solid family film. I mean, clearly it made almost $350 million worldwide. But I feel like once the Kung Fu Pandas, once the How to Train Your Dragons, and the more Shreks and stuff came out, and Madagascar, people kind of just forgot about this movie, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Now, granted, we have jumped many, 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 many levels in terms of animation since 2006. So watching it, the animation, like I said, is fine, but it's not, it's not as what it is today and stuff like that. So, and the plot is basic, but it's the cast that makes it work. So it's at the end, you're watching it was fine. It's fine film, but you love it because the cast, not because the story is this great thing. I still think it's got probably one of the best, funniest openings, which when RJ's trying to get the bag of the claw thing, when he frantically just starts doing this, I remember losing it in the theater, and I still lost it. Because just the franticness of it, I thought was great. And then, of course, after the whole bear thing, and he just bangs his head up against it and it falls down. And he just grabs it and looks at it I fucking hate you. It's that shit works. That's the kind of comedy that works for me there. But anything else you'd like to add for Over the Head?
No, just a correction to an oversight to myself. Bruce Willis also had a voice in Rugrats Go Wild. I never saw that.
Oh, yeah. I think he's the voice of Baby Dill.
And I have no memory of this in the movie. In Lego Movie Part 2, he voiced Bruce Willis. I don't remember this. Lego Movie, the second part.
I haven't seen the second part.
I did, but I don't remember it. So apparently he had a voice in
No, I haven't seen the second part.
I'm guessing it was a one-line cameo or something.
The theater. And I remember watching that in the theater. I was coming off a long shift at work, and I was having a hard time staying awake. Not the movie's fault. My fault. So I don't remember Bruce Willis.
So anyway, that's all the animation he's done.
Someday I'll watch Lego Movie again, but I don't know. Anyway, we're now going to move over to Brian's pick, which I think we both wanted to talk about this movie, but I gave it to Brian because he didn't have that many options. And I was like, I'll talk about Over the Hedge. What's that?
I said, oh, you're so generous. Gave it to me.
I am. Didn't I give you one a couple weeks ago
You
too?
give it to me. I took it. I'm like, this is my movie.
Anyway, Brian's film is the 1994 comedy poker film Maverick. Maverick came out March 20th, 1994. Had a budget of $75 million. Had a weekend opening of $17.25 million. It was number one its opening weekend. Its only week at the number one spot. And had a finished box office of $183.03 million. 101.63 million domestic and 81.40 million international. Which by today's standards, that would have made a shitload of money. But because of today's standards, maybe not. It probably would have been an indie film and not a box office film, which we'll get to that. Brian, go ahead with it. It's your film.
Yeah, so Maverick is an adaptation of a TV show, Maverick, which starred James Garner. From I don't know when that was, like the 60s, something like that, 50s maybe, I don't know. I think it's 60s. It's essentially like a Western TV show, and I don't know much about the show. I'm not gonna pretend I do. Just your
I don't
typical,
either. So
I think it's your typical like Western, like just story of the week kind of thing. But they made this movie, and they cast James Garner gets to have a supporting role in it. Mel Gibson stars as Maverick, and Jodie Foster as Annabelle. Yeah, Annabelle Branford. The basic story is that Maverick is this gambler, this poker player who is trying to make it to this giant tournament with this big payday. Yep. But he needs to first try and collect on some people that owe him some money, as well as make a little bit more money the last amount, because it takes $25,000 in whatever this is.
It's a $30,000 buy-in, and he's
just to buy in. Yeah,
he's like 3,000 short or something.
He's like 3,000 short when it starts. Yeah. But then everything keeps happening along the way, whether it be circumstances or people actively trying to keep him from getting to the game. It's kind of his struggle to get there. And then once you get there, there's the actual poker tournament, and then things go from there. What I love about this movie is a couple things. One, it's definitely got one of those things where it's like, it's definitely comedy. This is like a Western comedy. But it has this whole thing going through the whole time of, everybody's conning everybody. You never know who to trust. Even people that seem like they're best friends are trying to and helping you out. They're actually conning you too. And it kind of has that whole thing that keeps you guessing. But what really makes this movie for me is Mel Gibson. Now, this is Mel Gibson at the peak of Mel Gibson. He's in the middle of his Lethal Weapon, run. This is also directed by Richard Donner, who is the person who knows best how to use Mel Gibson in things like Lethal Weapons and Conspiracy Theory and some other stuff.
Yeah.
He is just so much fun to watch, because you can just tell he's having fun on screen, just joking around and stuff. But at the same time, he can flip and be really intense and handle the action scenes as well. Jodie Foster, aside from her very, very early Disney things as a kid, she's never done a comedy, and she hasn't done one since. And I don't know why, because I thought she was great in this movie.
She's directed a comedy,
she's directed some stuff, but she has not acted in actual comedies ever besides this one. And I don't know why, because like I said, I thought she was really good in this. She was a lot of fun. I think that the chemistry and the banter that she had with Mel Gibson was perfect. I thought they played perfectly off each other. Let me see. I also like that everything was done on location. That's one thing I miss about movies, especially things like Westerns. It's like, this was not in front of a lot of green screens. It wasn't, artificial backgrounds. This was, you could tell the beautiful Western landscapes were out there, kind of things like that. It was all, when there was battles and things, it was all practical effects, none of this digital stuff. Just, that's the one thing that jumped out at me watching this, because I really missed that kind of thing. And Randy Newman's score, I thought his score is perfect for this movie. It's just a lot of fun. I do have some other thoughts, but I'll let you give your thoughts first.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I know now and stuff, but back when in '94, I didn't know Maverick was a TV series. You know, you said you don't know much about the series. It's is the series about a poker player, or is the series about a U.S. Marshal, which is what Gardner was playing in this film?
I think it's more of a Marshal thing, but
that's what I thought. I thought it was more of a cop show. Yeah, I know a lot of people now cancel culture and stuff. You can't bring up Mel Gibson without blah 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 blah, all this kind of stuff. But outside of his real life shit, movie Mel Gibson we love, especially comedy Mel Gibson. Watching Maverick, I was just sitting there watching this. I was like, I miss this Mel Gibson so much. This dude could have been doing this for another 20 plus years. Now he's doing more movies now, but he's not good in those movies. But like this time frame, this Mel Gibson was gold in everything he does. Plus, you like say Richard Donner, and I love the little Easter egg with Danny Glover.
Danny Glover, yeah.
And they play the Lethal Weapon, like, and
that's perfect way to do it, because it's not it wasn't just they shove him in there in a cameo. It's you have him in there, and there's that moment of kind of recognition,
yes,
and the Lethal Weapon guitar riff.
Yes, and then I'm too old for this shit at the end of it. And I was like, I love this so much. But it's one of those things where it's like, you had to know Lethal Weapon, you had to know those two together, and you had to also know Richard Donner as the director. And it's like it's like,
well, even if you know Richard Donner the director, when this came out, there wasn't anybody who wouldn't have gone Danny Glover, Mel Gibson. Okay,
because like nowadays you would see that with James Gunn or man, names are sucking for me tonight. Wow. Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, director.
Oh, Edgar Wright?
Edgar Wright, where you have these guys and they're going to bring their buddies in and it's all big, like, haha, joke, that's all this. Like, you do that now, it's a normal thing. Back then, it wasn't a huge deal. So you have someone like Mel Gibson and Danny Glover and Richard Donner, because they're all three connected in such a strong way. And then you play the riff from Lethal Weapon in there and you have the Lethal Weapon line. Like, that shit, it's like 30 seconds of film, but it's such a great 30 seconds of film.
Of course, Donner also shoved in a pity cameo role for his Lois Lane, Margot Kidder, in here, but she wasn't looking so good.
Yes, that is true. But I mean, I enjoy this movie so much. It's my favorite Jodie Foster role, and yes, that's even over Silence of the Lambs. I love Jodie Foster. I am not a fan of Jodie Foster. I don't like when I see her in a movie, I'm kind of like, but I love her in this movie. I love Richard Garner. The chemistry between these three and the banter and the jokes back and forth between those three throughout the film are great. Alfred Molina as like the quote unquote villain of the film, as Angel, I think he works really well. And I am a sucker for poker tournament movies. This, Casino Royale. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to watch them play poker. I fucking do. I love watching these characters play poker. Like in Casino Royale and in this, I am zoned in. I'm like, it's exciting for me because you know how poker is. Once again, and I've talked about this on the show before, it's like when there's certain things that a character will do, and it's a nothing thing, but it sticks in your brain and you remember it. I don't know why. It's like, young imaging brain, but like I've always been a fan of, and is it Coburn? James Coburn, who plays Commodore. At the end when they're doing the final draw and Coburn thinks he's won, and then Angel throws down his straight flush and Coburn's got his cigar up and he just goes woo and drops it. I love that, and whenever I see someone do that, my brain immediately goes to him and Maverick. And not that I smoke, I don't at all. I can't handle it. But if I ever like had a cigar, I would do that all the time. Like I do that with my pen all the time. When I'll have like my pen in my mouth and someone will say something, I'll just go, ooh. And it's because of this scene in this movie. It's a little thing that's like has stuck with me through my life. And I was like, I love that. And that's the beauty.
It's a very phallic reference, yes. Like,
well, yes, exactly. But it's a thing. Like, the kid in me didn't understand that. It was just more or less, I love just the rapid motion of him going, fuck, kind of thing. But and that's what I love about movies. It's like something like that resonated with me and kept with me all my life. To you, it probably you didn't even bat an eye at it, but it's like everyone has a thing that sticks with them for a long periods of time. The con man, like screwing the other person over, all that kind of stuff. I do feel like it gets a little too heavy-handed, especially near the end, because at some point you're like, wait, so who's in the what now? Like like, wait, what's going on here, kind of thing. But that's the whole point of this. That's the same different thing with Oscar a couple weeks back. It's you're trying to like just keep, okay, who's with who's screwing the other, kind of thing. I agree. The actual setting of it being in location and stuff like that, which in '94, it's because in '94 you had to shoot movies that way. But Mel Gibson's fantastic in this film. He's hilarious. There's so many Mel Gibson, everything that makes Mel Gibson a good actor, he brings into this film.
Yeah.
There's every charismatic piece of Mel Gibson that made him the person that we loved until he started just being a douchebag, is in this movie. And you watch, he's like, why couldn't you have just stayed this way? Like, I want Mel Gibson to stay like this. It's like,
and I to this day, I still love Mel Gibson. He pops up not in straight to video stuff, but when he does pop up in movies, I still very much enjoy Mel Gibson because
we both liked him in Boss Level.
Because I just push his personal life to the side. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna ignore that. But it's like, but I still love Mel Gibson to this day. He's one of my favorite actors, honestly, and this is kind of the exact reason why this might be my favorite Mel Gibson movie. I don't know. It's hard to say offhand.
It's my favorite non-action because it's hard to put this over Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, it's Lethal Weapons, but I like the movie.
I love him in this movie.
It's not just because of Mel either, because I mean the whole movie is good and it's cast top to bottom is great. Mm-hmm. One thing I really love is when they kind of subvert expectations a lot, especially in the depiction of like the Native Americans.
Yes,
because they show up in there, and Maverick obviously knows them, and he's like, hey, act like you want to really take her, and then when Graham Greene shows up, and he just like played like, oh yeah, the stupid Russian Archduke wants to make some money, so it makes me go, oh, white man. I just love the way Graham Greene plays.
I love when he goes up to him and he speaks like it almost sounded like it was French, and the guy just looks at him and he's like, how white man.
Did you recognize the Russian Archduke?
He looked familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't.
One of your favorite movies we covered on here, Popeye. He was Bluto.
He is Bluto. He totally is Bluto. Wow.
And I remember how much you enjoyed that movie. So
I liked it when I was a kid.
Yeah, so did I. And then I was like,
that movie's horrible. But anyway.
But this is just a movie that I've always loved. I go back every few years and watch. If you ask me like my favorite westerns, this is going to be top 5 every time. As far as western comedies, it's probably
Western comedies is number 1.
Yeah,
with it's like that and Three Amigos are like right there. As
the Three Amigos I revisited a couple years ago did not hold up for me.
It did hold up for me. But yeah, there's just so many like moments I was watching this, and it felt like a warm blanket. Like I was like, man, I love this. Yeah. Like I loved like the horse. Was it Ozzy or is it what do you call the horse? I don't know. But like, I'm sorry, but like, if there is one unbelievable scene, is that he would land when he was being hung, and those snakes wouldn't have bit him. Oh, like he would have been dead. He would have been bitten like 8 times, and those snakes would have slithered after his ass. But yeah, I enjoyed so much of this, and like I said, Mel Gibson's zingers, where like especially like in the very beginning when they're playing that one game, and you got like the Billy the Kid, and he's like, I didn't say draw. I was just playing with you. And then like when he goes out to fight, he gives the kids the jacket. He goes, now here's my gun. If they're beating me up too bad, shoot me. It's the lines like that. We have to go like, did he say shoot him? He did say shoot him. Like it's all.
And then stuff like where he's playing the gun, and he goes put the gun away. He's like, won't stay in his holster. He keeps jumping up.
Oh my god, just keeps popping out. It's peak. Amazing Mel Gibson, and like Gardner's got some great lines too. Yeah. Like I thought
it was the best way to use Gardner, because when you use TV adaptations, a lot of times they'll either just leave people out of it, or they'll have them in some just like shoved in some random cameo.
Kind of like even though we like the movie, kind of like 21 Jump Street with Johnny Depp and
this one they like gave him a substantial part in it. He's obviously not the same role. He's not playing the main role, but he gets to play. Well, it's 20-30-year-old movie. He ends up being his dad.
Yeah,
which works out very well. But even if they hadn't taken that turn, just to have him there in a supporting role, in a major supporting role, I thought was a perfect way to use him.
And I love the moment at the end when they're both in the bathtub, separate bathtubs for anyone who's never seen the movie, and Jodie Foster's like, such amazing similarities, and they both go, and they both realize that's my dad, that's my son. Oh, like it's little things like that. There's just like it's physical comedy that just works. Even though I don't think Garner should have shaved his mustache, because like at the end of the movie, someone's like, "Why did you do that? You look so weird, clean shaven." Even though he's got shaving cream on underneath, but like I said, I love Alfred Molina in this film, where it's like because he's a bad guy, but he's not. He's like, look, he's like, I was paid to keep you out of this, but like I do want to beat you, and I love where he's like, aren't you gonna look at your card? Look at your goddamn card. Like I love how he's like freaking out because he needs to know, and then he loses like that. Like I just the only part that makes no sense to me is, and especially for Gardner in the movie, is like when Maverick gets locked in his room. Why wouldn't Gardner go check on him? like why wouldn't he go like? Well, because I guess because technically he was working with.
Well, he's in
Commodore.
charge of the whole thing, though. He can't.
Yeah, but it's like you guys know he's in his room. Like, why don't you go check on him? He's clearly something happened, kind of thing. Like, that's your son. Like, we don't know it at that time in the movie, but that's your son, kind of deal. But I love the whole like you were holding your breath. No, I wasn't. Well, when you get excited, wait. Oh. Like
how would you know that? Oh.
Yeah, and then Garda goes, "You were holding your breath. Shut up," kind of thing. But there's so many just great little lines. And people who haven't seen the movie, none of this stuff we're saying is making any sense. But if you watch it, it's great because it's one of those things. With I feel like most people nowadays either wouldn't watch this movie because of Mel Gibson now, or it's too old. But if you are a fan of poker films, comedy, anything like that, this movie is so good. It's so good. And if you could just get away from like Brian and I do, get away with the real life bullshit that's happening, just watch the performances, watch the acting in the films. You're gonna appreciate Mel Gibson for at least 2 hours? How long is Maverick?
Yeah, it's just over 2 hours.
Yeah, it's just over 2 hours. You can appreciate Mel Gibson for what he was for 2 hours, and then and after that, go watch Lethal Weapon or something. Go see man, he was actually really fun. He was a fun guy, and he still can be. It's just he's got to keep his mouth shut in real life stuff. I mean, compared to stuff happening nowadays, Mel Gibson, he's toned down quite a bit. But a lot of people can't forget Passions of Christ. And this is from someone who's at least part Jewish. I'm willing to forgive, guys. Come on, it's movies. Let's just enjoy fucking films. But anything you want to add for Maverick before we end this?
No, just my last fact check, because that's what I do to myself. The original TV series was about a family of like brothers, the gamblers that went from town to town. But they would get involved in like people's stories and adventures, but they were gamblers. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that's basically what kept happening through this film. It was very episodic in a way through it because you had like the opening scene with him in the poker game, and then he left, and then he ran into like the nuns, and then he ran into the Indians, and then he ran into this and this. So like each film is almost kind of like little episodic journeys throughout the film until we get to the actual poker game, which some people like, some people don't like. I think it just works for how this film is. Yeah, it's a fun film. Like I said, definitely, like we said, when we like a movie, we have a lot more to talk about with a movie, which I think.
No, I just now realized, and I think one of the reasons it works so well, especially in terms of the story that I like, this is written by William Goldman, the same guy who did Princess Bride. I just noticed that, so
that makes me love the even more.
Yeah,
I was getting into it with a guy the other day, not getting into it, but just like having a conversation. He still hasn't seen Princess Bride. And it's like, and he's a wrestler guy. I was like, how have you not seen that with Andre the Giant, dude? Like, you owe it to Andre to watch this movie. It's like, it's an hour and a half of your time. Trust me, you're not gonna hate it. You might not love it, but you ain't gonna hate it, man. Yeah. Like, just respect Andre the Giant and watch the damn film. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Weekly Crusaders. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, we have to follow us on all those social media outlets you see below. Let us know, do you guys enjoy these films? What did you guys think of Over the Hedge? Have you guys checked out Over the Hedge or Maverick? Do you guys like Maverick, or do you guys still refuse to watch anything Mel Gibson? If not, just shut your brain off and go watch a fun film. Coming up next week with Weekly Crusaders, Brian's having turmoil because he wants to pick a movie that he knows he likes, but he knows most people hate, and he thinks that I'm going to hate it, but I told him to pick it anyway because I have never seen it, and I wanted to watch it.
I will say it will be a back-to-back appearance for Bruce Willis.
Yes, it will. Bruce Willis will be on for back-to-back episodes. How would you describe this without giving it away?
Yours?
No, yours.
Oh, mine? I will just say it. I obviously just what you said. It's a Bruce Willis movie that is highly criticized as a horrible movie. I enjoy it. We'll just leave it at that. People figure it out.
So, I actually am genuinely not excited, but I was like, I actually am genuinely excited to watch this. And I picked a parody film back when parody movies were actually enjoyable and funny. This one is a sequel, so it might. I remember liking it. I don't know if I liked it better than the first one, but the first one didn't come out this week, so I went with this one. But I remember liking these movies regardless, so that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Our non-spoiler review and spoiler discussion of Fast X is out on the channel right now, as well as last week's episode of Weekly Crusaders, which I said we talked about Twister and Knight's Tale, two movies that we both loved and had a fun time talking about. This week's episode of Cinemasochism will be coming out probably next week based on scheduling. Once again, Brian picked a movie, did not even know this thing existed. He sent me the poster, and I was like, what is this film?
Let's say it's one of those so bad it's good kind of movies,
which we will see. I'm hoping it's more along the lines of like Tammy and the T-Rex and Frogtown, and less like, you know, Kung Pao Legends of the Fist. We'll find out when we do that episode. Next week we got Little Mermaid, and what else comes out next week?
That's the one you will review. It's got Kandahar and the Machine. The other one's coming out.
Oh yeah, Kandahar and the Machine, which the Machine might be on my area, but I'm probably not going to check that out. And Kandahar you will watch because you like those Gerard Butler films. I still haven't watched Greenland yet, so I know you liked it. I just haven't seen it. And Little Mermaid, I will definitely have a review off for that because Brian refuses to watch the film, so I will watch it for you guys and let you know what I think about it. You said that. You were like, I am not watching this film. But yes, we have more videos coming up on the channel, so stay tuned for that. We are the Movie Crusaders. I'm Sean Walsh, that is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, go watch some movies. Go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.